expecting something in return, but a little reciprocation wouldn't hurt. I'm going down roads with dead ends, but I can't help it.
Thank you for having me back.
I'm really glad to have you back because, it's really cool. I love doing this. I've done this a couple times now where I've invited somebody to speak on the show here and then had them back. And in this case, it's really fun because when you and I spoke the last time, we spoke about your new album, which is coming out in...
I'm releasing on the 23rd.
I usually release new episodes of Our Mind on Music on Saturdays.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. That'd be like the week before.
Awesome. Yeah. So cool. What's really cool for me is I went back and I was watching our conversation from the last time, which was in February.
Mm-hmm.
You were talking about the fact that you were going to release your next upcoming single on February 29th, the leap year day, because you were leaping into...
Yeah.
Which was the name of the episode, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So because you had said that, so I used that as the title for the episode because I thought that was such a cool concept.
Yeah.
You thought so much about that detail of it,
Mm-hmm.
And you talked to me about some of the songs that you were going to have on the album. So for me now to go back and listen to them is like super cool because describing them and now I'm actually hearing them. Before releasing anything, people sometimes feel, of course, excited, but like, are you nervous or are you just like, you can't wait for people to hear it? How do you feel?
I'm really excited. I can't wait for people to hear it. I feel like I'm at the point where I'm obviously a little nervous because I want people to like it.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I've had so many releases where I feel like I'm at a point now as a songwriter where I know what I want to say in my music and I'm more confident in my sound and myself as an artist. And so now it's more of like being super excited for everybody to hear this album because I put so much time and effort into writing the songs and recording the songs. And it's been a long time. I started writing the album, I believe, in spring of 2022 is when I wrote the first song.
Wow.
And I had all of the songs pretty much recorded by September 2023. So it was that whole process of writing and recording. And then since then, it's been getting the masters ready and going through the mixes with my producer and setting up interviews and things like that. So I'm really excited after the long road that it's finally here.
Yeah, that's amazing. I actually didn't realize you started these songs that long ago because I remember we talked about I had seen the progression sort of thematically from Dear Diary to It Is What It Is and then Hear Me Out, where you're going from like sort of keeping these songs to yourself, private, to accepting what you're saying and now saying Hear Me Out is like, all right, now I'm just telling the world what's on my mind.
Yeah, that was a big progression for me. And I think it's really cool because it's completely reflected in the album title. It's Dear Diary implies secrets and introspection and things like that. And Hear Me Out is just really saying, listen to what I'm saying. So I think the titles of the albums really reflects that as well.
I don't remember if we had talked about this before. Was that progression a conscious thing, like from like you started off knowing that this was going to be different sort of chapters?
Yeah, no, I definitely think so. Especially when I was writing Dear Diary, I saw those songs as diary entries because of how personal they were. And so I immediately thought Dear Diary was a perfect title because that album to me was like a musical diary. Versus whenever I started writing Hear Me Out, I knew that I wanted to talk about things on the album that I haven't really talked about before. And I wanted to touch on experiences and emotions and just unapologetically be myself. And write about things like on Hear Me Out. There are songs on there. All 8 of them are about things I've never written about before. So it's a very different project. And I knew right away I wanted to take it in that direction. And so whenever I decided for the title actually came from the song Quiet. There's a lyric in there that says, I don't have to use my voice for you to hear me out. And Quiet's the first song I wrote for the album.
I'm not trying to wield the silent treatment, but holding my tongue is not a weakness. So if you're out here thinking any different, you've got the wrong impression. I've noticed when I'm quiet, I don't have to use my voice for you to hear me out.
And so after I wrote that song, I saw that title in that lyric and I was like, oh my gosh, that's capturing perfectly what I want to do with this project. And so I took that title and then I had that in my mind as I was writing the next songs for the album.
That's cool, actually. I love that. I've been in that situation before as well myself, where I'm like, I have an idea and it seems like, oh, that's a nice idea. And then it's kind of like a drop of water onto earth. And then you don't see the seed at the moment. You just know that you're like starting something. And then actually that seed starts to grow and become something bigger and bigger that you maybe didn't even know exactly what it was going to be. So you wrote that line because that line came to you writing that song. Looking back at it, you said, wait a minute, hear me out. That's pretty good. I should maybe go with that, as the title.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really fun. The same thing happened with my EP because the first song I wrote for that was You Get What You Give. And in the chorus, it says, It is what it is, you get what you give. And I was like, oh my gosh, like it is what it is. That's the perfect title for this project. So I think
Yeah.
it's really cool. I think it's really cool when artists pull lyrics from songs to make the titles. Dear Diary, which is like a total different song, or a total different title that wasn't mentioned in any of the songs. But for the other two, there were lyrics that I wrote and I was able to pull a lyric from the song to make the title, which I think ties it together really nicely.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And I'm glad you mentioned Quiet, actually, because that was one of the ones I believe, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's one of the ones that you did the studio, the video blog.
I did a studio video for that. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because I thought so, because I was listening to it and I was like, I remember from watching some of those video blogs where you're recording your experience in the studio. And I
Hmm.
thought that was the one where the your producer, Bob McCutcheon, he said, in the chorus, I can hear this cello thing,
Yeah.
Is that the one? I think,
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I believe
yeah,
so.
because it does like the low note and then the chord, boom, bang, and
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
like
that's it. Yep.
doing that motion because I could hear it
Hmm.
myself when I heard the piano part when you were just recording it initially. I could hear that like pizzicato that
Yeah,
was
yeah,
needed
yeah.
there.
When I was playing around, it wasn't like it was almost like a wood blocky kind of sound, but it was pitched.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah. It's like more muted. That's it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I want.
What I hear in the chorus, maybe the second chorus and then the outro chorus is in this. I think this is the chorus, right?
Yeah.
Those I hear cello plucks.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Maybe in the second one.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So I did a high octave, low
Yeah,
octave
that sounds
on
really
those.
cool.
But in the bridge, I kept it as just the
Okay.
low octave.
Yeah. That's so cool. Oh my god.
That's neat. I like that.
That's so cool. Like it had a nice bass to it.
Yeah, I think I'd probably want to get vocals in there before I start adding any other arrangement elements or production elements, because I'd rather work around your vocal at this point.
Yeah. Because we can even do that thing where like certain lines I can always play the melody on something.
Right.
Whispers in my ears, I can hear them all. Fire in my tears, you won't see them fall. 'Cause I'm in control, and my lips are sealed. Yeah, they're sealed. I love this song, man.
This is so cool for me that I saw that process. We talked about the song, you and I.
Yeah.
I saw the video blog where you were recording it, and now I hear the song complete, you know?
Yeah. No, for
Yeah.
sure. That one was a fun one to record.
Yeah, I really love I mean I love all the songs on this for different reasons, but that song I really love just the intro. Like
Mhm.
it hit me right away. I was
Yeah.
like, wow, you know. The one that you and I spoke about before that I was curious to hear where it was gonna go, and passive aggressive.
I bet you're keeping score every time I do something that you don't like. So listen now, I've lost count of all the times that you don't look me in the eye. 'Cause you like to take the sly route, it's true. Never hit me head on, but ooh, it's gonna catch up to you right now. I'm calling you out.
Because like a lot of your stuff when you sing, honestly, it sounds so sweet. It sounds so like
Yeah.
simple heart. The way that you sing, you know, like your voice and everything. And then
Mm.
this one, it's like, dang, I didn't didn't see that coming. It it
Yeah.
was really cool. I think that'll be a surprise for people who know the recordings that you made previously.
Yeah, no, it definitely was. Multiple people have said like, "Oh my gosh, like you definitely have that sassy side," and I've got a lot of comments saying that a lot of people think that's my best song or that's their favorite, and that one actually got a nomination for Songwriter Achievement for the Jersey Music Awards in October. So I'm curious to see what happens, but that one I was just so mad about like dealing with passive aggressive people, and I was like, I'm just writing a song about this, and it's pop rock basically, and I've never written a song like that before. And I think what really helped as well was I wrote that I think in May of 2023, and I recorded it in June, and so it was like very fresh still. I feel like some of the songs because I book studio sessions whenever I have a lot of songs to record because I go for 10 hours.
Mhm.
And so I don't always record soon after I write the songs. And so in those instances, I really have to like put myself back in the headspace I was in when I wrote the song in order to deliver like an authentic vocal performance and the emotion of the song. But for that one, it was so soon and I was still like so frustrated about this situation that like I didn't even have to try. Like the attitude in that song is like 100% genuine. So it was a very fun one.
Yeah, that's super cool. I do I do think that sometimes one of the skills that's difficult about studio work is that it's being able to translate the feeling that you had when you wrote the song into recreating it sometimes in the studio a number of times, you know, and trying to get that
Yeah.
across, you know.
Yeah, I wasn't good at that at the beginning, and I think that's one of the things on Dear Diary. I love that album, but it's definitely a first album because in the songs, I feel like the way I sing them, it's kind of the same. I mean, there's some emotion in some of them, but like for the most part, it just feels like I was just standing in the booth and singing. Versus with this one, I really try to think about like what is the emotion. Like for example, me singing Kind Heart is completely different than passive aggressive, just the way that I'm singing it.
Hmm.
And if that was me like 5 years ago, I probably would have sounded the same singing both of those songs. And so, like, going into it, especially when I started recording and songwriting, I didn't really know. So, these are things I had to, learn myself as I went through the process. And so now I definitely try to think, like, what is the emotion of the song? How did I feel when I was writing it? And translating that as in singing it in the studio and doing as many vocal takes as I can or as necessary to get that emotion across how I want it.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's a fair point. For me, when I listen to Dear Diary, it doesn't sound like the way that you just said that. It makes it sound like for somebody who maybe hasn't heard that, they'll be like imagining sort of flat vocals, but
Yeah.
it's not that at all. I didn't hear that personally. But I do hear much more of the dynamic of the
Right.
feel in just your voice in itself, but also, I mean, passive aggressive is a great example, but it's not the only one of like taking
Right.
chances, you know, stepping outside of what you normally might do or record, you know, like I remember you telling me that Bob McCutcheon kept on saying to you, like, are you like, how far do you want to go with this rock? Like, is this okay? You know, he kept checking in with you.
Yeah, no, it was so funny. He was like, "Are you sure this is what you want?" Like he asked me that so many times
Right.
because he's like, "This is getting rock and roll. Is this what you want?" I'm like, "Yes, let's go."
Yeah,
That was
this is, you
funny.
know, which I think is super cool. I think the idea of development, of evolution of your sound and of your, I don't know, comfort level with expressing what you're saying, I think it's all part of that same thing, going from a diary entry to, okay, let's put on the lights, you know, put on the microphone, tap, tap, tap. This is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm feeling. It's very authentic, you know, and we've talked about that.
Yeah, yeah,
And
for sure.
I think that comes through loud and clear in these songs, you know.
Yeah.
So well done.
It's gonna catch up
Well,
to
thank
you
you.
right now. I'm calling you out. You've got so much to say, but never to my face. Yeah, flowing lost in shame.
I forget the name of the guitarist that you work with. What is his name?
Yeah, no, that's Luke. Yeah, he does all of my guitar, Luke.
Yeah. I mean, I had commented that I believe it was in Tinsel Heart was the guitar solo that I loved.
Snow on Christmas Day, I think.
Oh yes, Snow on Christmas Day. Thank you. Yeah, Snow
Yeah,
on
that
Christmas
one. Yeah,
Day.
yeah.
And you said that it was his favorite solo at that point as
Yeah,
well.
I know he likes that one a lot. Yeah, we were actually just talking about that the other day because I have him working on a new song for me, and it has a guitar solo in it, and we're like, seriously, nothing's going to beat the Snow on Christmas Day guitar solo because that was so good.
I actually went back. I half jokingly said to you, because you said that there was a video of it. I was like, good, I can go back and use that to learn it. I actually did. I went back and learned how to play it because
Yeah,
I've done it
yeah.
before. But that combination together with the song itself, I don't know. I just thought it fit really well. So I had to go back.
Yeah.
So I did.
Oh, I wanna see snow on Christmas Day.
Yeah, no, it's a good one.
On a similar note, there's Kind Heart with that flute part, which is like, holy
So
cow.
good.
What is
That's
the name of the
Anna. She's
flautist?
so good.
Sorry?
Anna. Anna's the
Anna.
flutist. Yeah.
Yeah.
I give without expecting.
She did amazing. She did so good.
It's just, I mean, we were just talking about dynamics and expression and all those things. I mean, holy cow, when that flute part comes in, I was like, okay, that's good, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I love flute. That's an instrument I've always wanted to play.
Mhm.
And I always wanted flute on one of my songs, and I was just waiting for the one. And when I wrote Kind Heart, it just made sense to me that that was the one. And so when Anna played on that, like she did perfectly. She did so good.
Yeah, I agree. Like, did she just improvise that, or was that something that you guys sat down and sort of planned out? I don't know. How did that work?
Yeah. When she recorded it,
Mhm.
it was so funny because she had never recorded anything before. That was her very first time in the studio. And she went and she was like, oh, like she was like a little like nervous, I could tell a little bit, but like she was excited. And she went in and I was on so this is really cool. So there's this software where a producer can send you a link that's connected to the stream that's going from like his computer to the speakers like in the recording software. So basically like I can go on this website and click a link and I can hear exactly what is being recorded as it's being recorded in real time. And it's very clear to hear like what's being recorded because it's going right into his system and like the output into like this stream link and then to his speakers. So I was like listening on that and Anna played it and we were like my producer and I were so floored because like she did it perfectly the first time and we're like I don't think you have to do it again, but like she wanted to do it again, and we had her do it like I think we had her do it 3 times, just because she got it like really really good the first time, to where like after that like the pressure was off. You know what I mean? So she can like improvise a little more and like be a little more free with it. And
Mm,
we actually took some like my producer sent me all 3 takes, and I basically went through and said, I want this part from this take and this part from this take. So we went through the whole thing and did that. But it
okay.
was really great because like she did it so well that I was like, okay, now just like improvise, just do what you're feeling. And she did some really cool things. And
Yeah,
so we kind of just picked and choose from the different takes, but she did amazing.
that's so cool. That what a great
Yeah,
feeling
no, she
must
did
be for her
great.
too.
Hmm.
Yeah. So what's like how are you releasing it? This is confusing for me actually, so maybe you can help me to understand this part. Like you release these singles, so that is great because everybody can hear what you're up to and sort of get an idea of what's coming. But then when you release
Hmm.
the album, what does that look like in terms of like is there a single that goes out that day, or like how do you do that? What does that look like?
Yeah, so the singles, so typically artists will release singles leading up to a project. So I did Kind Heart, then Passive Aggressive, then I'm Introverted, So What.
I'm introverted, I'm introverted. I love butterflies, but I'm not the social kind.
When the whole album comes out, those singles are on the album, but they have the same IRC code, which is basically like it's the same song. So like for example, on like streaming services, the single and the album track will be seen as like the same song through like Spotify. So we'll calculate the streams together, if that makes sense, because it's the same song, it just released in different areas. But yeah, I'm Introverted So What's track 1, Passive Aggressive is track 2, and Kind Heart is track 7. And then the other 5 are completely new songs that haven't been heard before.
So once you've released that album, there are 5 songs that haven't been heard before. Do you release those as singles separately as well later?
No, no, they're just album songs. Some artists, like, for example, like Taylor Swift, like she'll have like an album, and then if she wants to put in another song to radio, then she'll release it as a single for radio. So people do release album songs as singles after release. I've never done that. The only thing I've done is like I just released an acoustic version of Halfway Out of This Town, which is on my EP.
When the moonlight shines between the blondes and you're on your phone to pass the time, do you write to me, then press delete? When you're driving down a country road and my favorite song comes on the radio, do you sing along or turn it off?
And I released that on the 1 year anniversary of winning my music award. But it was like a completely different version. It was new, like vocals. It was a guitar acoustic version, and so that's like considered to be a different song. The only time you would use like the same codes and stuff is if it's the exact same studio recording. But I've never released a single after the album because I'm moving on to the next thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because yeah, when I was asking that, I was asking from the perspective of me being like part of your audience, but yeah, part of it is you as an artist, as a singer-songwriter, you're like, I'm already on to the next thing. You've already got Luke working on another song, you know?
Yeah, I know. I already started. I already know what I'm doing for a new EP, and it's gonna have 4 songs on it. I don't want to share like too many details right now, just because it's in the early stages, and I always change my mind. But so far, there are 2 songs that were previously written and partially recorded. Then I'm gonna go back through and make some changes too, and then 2 new ones, and
Okay.
we'll see what happens. But that's my plan for hopefully next year. But that's what I mean. Like, I'm going to the studio and going to start working on that. And by that point, my album isn't even out yet.
Yeah.
So I'm always looking forward to the next thing.
That's so cool. I mean, and yeah, that is how it works. Like it rolls forward. I have to say, as you're talking about that, like the new thing coming out that you haven't even been in the studio to record yet. I was listening to your podcast, Right on Track. In one of the episodes, you were talking, I think it was episode 37, you were talking to some other podcasters. You were talking to these people about podcasting about music, and they were saying, you know, I do a podcast about music. I didn't realize I would have like these conversations about stuff that hasn't come out yet, and sometimes get to hear things before they're released.
Yeah, no, it's super cool. Like I sent you mine before
Yeah.
it's out. So I think that's the really cool thing to be in the promotion side of music and getting to hear things pre-release. I think that's cool.
Yeah, well, I feel like it's kind of the next step into another part of what I was talking about earlier, where, you know, watching your video blog and sort of watching the beginning of that recording. People get to hear your thoughts of what you were doing at that moment, what the producer was saying or thinking about it.
Mhm.
So when we hear this song now, I feel like I've been part of this journey, you know?
Yeah.
So it's not like just a song that
Yeah.
either catches my ear or doesn't. It's like I've been waiting for this to hear this thing, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's really cool because I'm the same way like with artists that I like. If they share like clips from the studio, or like if they debut a new song at a concert and there's videos all over social media, then it's like, oh, I can't wait to actually hear the recording of this song.
Yeah.
And so I definitely think like part of it's for me to like have memories of these things and like document them. But the other part is like sharing behind the scenes and teasing what's coming. And I think that's really cool. Just adds a fan of artists as well.
Yeah, and I think you know, that idea, I've talked to a lot of people now about the idea of community. Like very recently, I interviewed some friends of mine in Ontario about playing in a cover band. And when I spoke to them, one of the things that was really important to them to get through was the fact that they are part of a community. Not having that community, they'd be just standing on an empty stage with nobody in the room. You know, like
Yeah.
it's it's all part of the same sort of connected thing, you know?
Yeah.
And I think
Hmm.
that's what I see with what you're doing is you're not just releasing songs, you're speaking to people, you know, and people
Right.
are
Yeah.
able to interact with that.
Me anxious.
I'm introverted, so what?
Don't mind me. I like vibing on my own, but I'm still observant. Don't judge me, 'cause yeah, I'm introverted. So what?
I,
I love this one.
I love that song and I love the title because as I said to you when you first told me about that song when we spoke the last time, um, I had at that point a student who was preparing a TED talk.
Yeah, you did mention that.
Yeah, and so that was really cool because it was just amazing timing, actually. It was like I was just learning about what that actually means. I told you before, I thought being introverted meant that you were shy and you didn't like to do things. And my student, this seventh grader, was explaining to me that that's not what it is. And your song just speaks to that, which I think is so cool. Like, how did that, I don't know, like what prompted that really?
Yeah, so I had an idea for a really long time to write a song about being introverted because I come from a family of extroverts and I've always felt like the odd one out. And like even in school and stuff, I was just like always different. And I had some friends who were introverts too. But being around extroverts, I was like, how are they like that? Like, how do they thrive on like being in crowds all the time? And I just want to go home and sleep for a day after. Like, it's just a whole thing. And I was like, I want to write a song about being introverted, but in a way that's like empowering because I feel like people who aren't introverts look at introverts like, oh, you guys are strange. But there's nothing wrong with being introverted. It's just a different personality type in a way. And so
Yeah.
I was thinking about that song and I was like stuck on it for a really long time. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then one day, the first lyric came to my mind, which is I love butterflies, but I'm not the social kind, which is the most on brand thing I could probably ever write, to be honest. And then after I had that lyric, I was like, yes, I got it. And I basically wrote the song very quickly after that, trying to capture like what it's like to be introverted, some of the downsides of being introverted, but also some of the positives too. So this is the introvert empowerment anthem.
Yeah, you said that when we spoke last time too. I thought that was interesting wording, you know, the anthem idea. It's funny because I think before I started thinking about this, I just assumed that being extroverted was a strength and it was a better thing, you know, whereas
Yeah.
I don't think it's a question of better or worse, but I definitely
No.
see the strength in taking your time to think about what you want to say, you know, that
Hmm.
I mentioned to you. This isn't me coming up with this, it was my student who told me the extroverts speak to think and introverts think to speak.
Yeah, no, that's super true. And I think the other thing too is like I'm super like quiet in public situations, like in conversations and stuff, to the point where like I'll just like listen and extroverts can think, oh, like the introverts are just super spacey and they're like not paying attention because they're not talking. But I guarantee you there's like a conversation going on between me and like three people. I guarantee you that if they're extroverts, I'm the one who is most aware of what's being said, what's not being said, and just like being super observant. So I think there's an observant quality to like being aware of what's going on and then talking instead of just like talking all the time and not being like aware of what exactly is going on and like reading the vibes of the room and stuff.
Yeah. And one of the things, I mean, I've actually done training on this as an educator. You know, uh, it, the idea that a lot of people actually, they look like they're listening, but actually what they're really doing is waiting so that they can say their part. You know, like
Yeah, that's
I,
me for sure. No, yeah.
being an active listener is
Mm-hmm.
real strength. As teachers, we're told like if you ask a question and the student doesn't answer right away, it doesn't necessarily mean they don't know. So give them a second. Like,
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, no, definitely. I think there are definitely different kinds of being introverted. Like, there's like social anxiety, and there's just like different types. And I think that's the cool thing too, is like there are some people who don't seem shy at all, and you might think like they're not introverted at all, but they actually are. And so I think like there are different kind of things that we experience in our lives from day to day that can be like triggers for like introverts. Not all introverts are the same.
You're drizzling down on my roses, won't wash me out, and I know it. Your heart's a stormy grave. Wow.
One's called Rain on My Parade, which is very sassy and direct. That song's basically about not letting people ruin things for you. If you're happy about something or you're celebrating something and somebody tried to take that away from you, don't let them. I wrote this song in 2022 after I got music award nominations for the first time. A couple of people were like not very nice. There was some passive aggressive behavior going on, but I just have like one memory of somebody basically diminishing my accomplishment by saying something along the lines of it's not the Grammys, meaning like it's a smaller award show for independent artists. It's not the Grammys, so it's not a big deal. And that like really hurt my feelings for a couple minutes. And then I was like, you know what, screw that. Like, I'm not letting that get to me. Like, I'm happy and I'm not a mainstream artist, so the Grammys are not even in my reach right now. But so I wrote that song basically. You can listen like to the lyrics, especially the bridge. It makes it really clear I'm talking about music awards. But in other parts of the song, it's just talking about how not letting people ruin things for you is the way to go because no one should ruin things for you that you worked hard for.
You can't rain, 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 rain on my parade. Rain, 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 rain on my parade. I got fire in my veins, veins, veins. You can't rain, 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 rain.
there's a part in that song in Rain on My Parade where it says like you're stealing my sunshine, and then it goes on to say like you won't strike me down, you could try.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I just thought that was great because yeah, there are always going to be people who are detractors and
Mm-hmm.
trying to diminish what you're doing, but there's always that. There's somebody who did win a Grammy and they say, well, yeah, but you didn't win like the best album Grammy. You didn't win the best female singer of the year Grammy. You know, like, are you kidding me? At what point can we just be proud of our accomplishments and then move forward to the next thing, you know? So.
Yeah. One of my favorite lyrics from that song is in the second pre-chorus, and I say, just because your stars, or just because your stars aren't aligned, don't go messing with mine. It's just like a very sassy song. I love that one. And then Make Time is basically about not making time for somebody that doesn't make time for you. I think, like, if you think about it, we all have the same amount of time. There's 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week. And if you really care about somebody, you will make time for them. And in this song, like I'm saying, I'm not asking to be your top priority, and I'm not asking to take up like all your time. But if you really cared, you make time for me the way that I make time for you.
I've heard the famous words, I'm busy, but guess what? I'm busy too. I've heard the famous words, I'm sorry, but guess what? I'm sorry too.
I think there have been a lot of situations across my life where I like cared about somebody and made them a priority in my life, and they just weren't reciprocating that. And it got to the point where I was like, why am I putting in all this effort if you don't care? So that's what Make Time is about. And then the last song is called Kaleidoscope, and that's the last song on the album too. And just a fun fact, a group of butterflies is called a kaleidoscope. And so I think that fits my brand as well. And this song, I think it's a really nice one to end on, just because I feel like all the songs on the album are about very specific things, like dealing with passive aggressive people and people who don't make time for me and people who try to ruin things for me and judging me because I'm introverted and all of these things. And at the end, I'm just like in a very good space right now. Like, I'm happy, I'm proud of where I am. And I think, like, in that song, I'm talking about how life is like a kaleidoscope. Every day has different colors. Not every day is going to be good. Not every day is going to be bad. And all the things that I'm talking about on this album, they were hard things, but I got through it and I'm in a better place now. And one of my favorite lyrics in that song and on the whole album is in the bridge. I say, I need the dark to see the stars. And that's basically saying, like, metaphorically, how we need the darkness and the bad times in order to appreciate the good. And we don't live the same thing twice. Every day is different, a different palette. And it's like a kaleidoscope of different experiences and emotions and situations.
I go through shades of feelings, from gloomy blues to happy pastels. Know the hues of healing, from faded gray to clear skies of azure. Every day is made up of different colors, 'cause life's a kaleidoscope. Some nights I feel like shards of glass.
And so yeah, that's Kaleidoscope, and I really like that song. It's a very feel-good song. It's very positive and uplifting. And like I said, after all the other songs are very sassy and direct and bold, I just wanted to end on a positive note. And so that's why I chose to end with Kaleidoscope.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like, I hear a lot of song lyrics that I think are great as song lyrics, but I don't necessarily myself hear them as poems. But Kaleidoscope for me felt like a poem. Like, you could have released that in a book without music, and it would be a very nice poem unto itself.
Yeah.
You know, it felt like a poem that you set to music.
There's a lot of imagery in it, and I'm using different colors and just using imagery as a kaleidoscope. Like in the first verse, I'm saying, like, some nights I feel like shards of glass all shaken up. Like, a kaleidoscope is, you know, that's literal. But in life, sometimes we feel like everything's a total mess and you can't make sense of anything. And then in the second verse, I say, sometimes I feel like flecks of gold so beautiful. So it was like bringing in these different colors, and, you know, just all these different experiences and emotions that we go through. We're experiencing the whole rainbow in a way, but through life's experiences. So yeah, let's Kaleidoscope.
Yeah. I guess the fact of the strong images, and it just kind of like keeps flowing out, I felt like it actually could stand alone as without the music.
Mhm.
Paul McCartney did that. He released a bunch of Beatles lyrics as a book of poetry a few
That's
years.
so cool. I should totally do something like that, to be honest.
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I think lyrics are as okay, the way that I listen to music, I listen to the music. I can hear the bass guitar and I can hear the
Yeah, yeah.
cellos coming in and you know, um, I know one of my sisters who is also a writer, she can literally hear a song and not hear that. She doesn't hear the bass guitar at all, but she hears the words and she says, "Oh,
Yeah.
did you hear how they use that imagery?" And I'm like, "Nope."
The what now?
So,
That's so funny.
so
Yeah, it's
you could
funny.
be saying the same thing to people and they hear it differently. So yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it would be really cool for you to explore that idea of just taking lyrics that you've already written and released as songs and release it as a book of poetry.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's so funny because one of my author friends, she sent me one of her poems to critique before she submitted it somewhere. And it was so funny because I was like, I can look at it, but like I don't really, I'm not like a poet, so I don't know how much I'm going to be able to help you. And she's like, you're literally a songwriter. I'm like, yeah, good point.
I always hit the ground running. My mind set on the next thing, I never stop to smell the roses.
Future of yesterday, what was the motivation for that?
So for this one, I wrote this right after I graduated with my master's, and it was a situation where when I was in undergrad, I could not wait to go to grad school. And then when I was in grad school, especially toward the end, I kept thinking, I just want to graduate because I want to start pitching my book to agents and I just want to do that. And so when I graduated, it hit me that like a couple years ago, like 3 years ago when I graduated from my undergrad at the time, I was like looking forward to my grad program, which was my future at the time. And
Mhm.
because I was looking forward to the next thing after that, it was almost like I wasn't present and being in the moment like I wish I would have been. And
Mhm.
so this song is basically about being present, being in the moment, and not wishing away your future of yesterday because in the past, you're looking forward to something that you're living right now. And when that's history, it's not going to be the same. So that's what that song is about.
Yeah, that's wow, that's interesting perspective. I've thought about that, especially in my case, working in international schools, that sometimes happens with people. We as international school teachers tend to move on after a couple of years, and
Mm-hmm.
from my perspective, I always thought it was really important to, you just use the term to be present, you know. I think if I'm only going to be at a certain school for, let's say, 4 or 5 years or less,
Yeah.
sometimes, really enjoy the time that I'm there, really enjoy that moment because it's a small part that's not going to come back in my life.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's the whole point of the song. I feel like a lot of us are always looking forward to the next thing. Like, oh, I can't wait for this to happen, or I can't wait for this to happen. It's like, but you're living something right now that you wanted to be experiencing. So don't wish that away. So that's what the song is about.
Yeah.
That's it. So that's the album. Let's hear me
Yeah.
out.
It's great. I'm excited. I've heard some of the songs. Well, now I've heard all the songs, so I feel pretty cool, pretty lucky. So thank you for sharing that.
You're
It's for
welcome.
me, it would be really difficult to sit here and talk to you about theoretically what your songs would be, whereas now I've heard them and I know what we're talking about. People who already love your music are going to hear elements that they've heard before that they love, and they're going to hear some new stuff that I think will be surprising for a lot of people, like passive aggressive, for example. That for me, I kind of,
Mhm.
whoa, hold on a second, is this still Demi here?
The same artist. That's
Is it?
funny.
Yeah, it was very different. Like, I don't know if you know Alana Miles, a Canadian singer.
Yeah.
There was a moment when I heard the guitar come in, and I thought, that could be a lot of miles, and that is not something I
Yeah.
would associate really with what I had heard previously from you. You are now officially a published author.
I am. I'm so excited. Hi, it's Demi Michelle Schwartz here. I got a package from Amazon, and this is my copy of Clio's Curious Dash Through Time by Routing Publishing. This is my first publication. I'm so excited. My story, The Scribe from the Lost City, is featured in this fabulous anthology that spotlights the muse of history from Greek mythology, Clio. And I'm gonna open it and see. Here it is. Look at that cover. Oh my goodness. And honestly, like, this is a dream come true. I'm so grateful to Abby and Brittany and Emily for illustrating for my story. And just thank you so much to everyone who has been along for this ride. It is just wild. So thank you so much. I'm a published author.
It was such a nice moment. So congratulations on that. That's really cool.
Thank you.
So it's
Thank you.
I think the lost city of Atlantis is a cool concept, and your story is actually an origin story of that.
Yeah.
Of a legend.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yes. Yeah. So basically, just briefly, it's like Atlantis is a huge legend, like universally known. Everybody knows about Atlantis, and I wanted to explore like how that came to be in our world. And so I've always been obsessed with Greek mythology, which is tied to the legend of Atlantis too. And I have always wanted to do something with Atlantis. So whenever I saw the submission call for that anthology, Cleo's Curious Dash Through Time, it's tied to history and time. And I was like, oh my goodness, like I can do an Atlantis story. And so basically, the story is told from Sophia's point of view, who is a fictional character, and she is a scribe. And basically, what she does is she will translate old stories from like the Atlantis language into Greek so it can be spread all around the world, and basically showing like over a period of time how Atlantis went from being a paradise to being very power hungry, and the kings were greedy and they wanted to expand and conquer and stuff. And Sophia was like young, and she was like, why can't we go back to how things used to be? Like, why is Atlantis how it is now? Like, she was reading all these old stories of like, oh my goodness, like I want Atlantis to go back to how it was. And so she's praying to the gods. And Amphitrite is Poseidon's wife, and she appears to Sophia and basically says, look, like the gods aren't happy, and if the kings don't change their ways, then Poseidon's going to strike the island at dawn, which is where we get the whole like earthquake, island sinking concept from the story. And so Sophia goes to the center of the island to see King Atlas and try to convince him of what's going to happen. And she delivers the message that Amphitrite sent from Poseidon for her to give to the kings, and the king didn't believe her. And so Poseidon struck the island, and there was a big earthquake, and it started to sink. And I'm not going to spoil the end of the story, but at the very end, you find out how exactly the story of the lost city became part of our world. So you'll have to get the anthology to read the story, but it was very fun to write, and that was my first publishing credit, so I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, the scribe from the lost city is the name of your story, right?
Yeah.
That's cool. I mean, you just gave a lot more detail than I thought you would be willing to give, so thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
You are into obviously the music that we've just been talking about, and then of course
Yeah.
the writing side of things, and you're a podcaster. So Right on Track is your podcast about music.
And I also host Literary Blend, which is a publishing podcast. I started that in March.
Yeah, I remember. In fact, I think when you and I spoke the first time, you were saying, I'm going to be doing this other podcast.
Yeah.
And now you're on, how many episodes of that have you done? 30 something?
Over 30 by this point, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know, how do you envision this going? Like, do you think at some point you might pick like a stream and go, okay, this is what I'm doing now? Or do you think it'll always just be?
I think I'll always do multiple things. I feel like the podcasts have always been side projects for me. So that's something that I anticipate like just continuing for Right on Track, I did go down to one episode every other Sunday just because I've been so busy with other things. And I didn't want to stop the podcast because I love it. I'm never going to stop doing it. But I just needed to give myself more time. And so I think it's going to be a matter of like with the podcast, with Literary Blend for a while, just because of all the interest when it started. I was doing like 3 episodes every other week. And that became a lot. And so I'm pulling back to 2, and then maybe I'll go down to 1. Because it takes a lot to like record and edit those and everything. But in terms of the music and the author, I love them both equally. And so I try to pay attention to what needs my priority of focus at a given time. So like right now I'm focusing on the album, and I'm on submission with my book, and my agent is going to be reading my other book soon. So right now I'm kind of just in a waiting period with my books. And so I'm able to focus more on music, and I'm writing like short stories for anthologies just to stay like up to date with, like keeping writing and submitting and things like that. And then once I start like revising my book, my album will be out, and so I'll be able to shift my focus. And so I think it's just like balance and organization. But I don't see myself like stopping music or stopping publishing.
Yeah. I mean, fair point. I think if you're able to stay organized like that, to do that, a friend of mine said there's actually no such thing as multitasking. There's just really quick and smooth serial tasking.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'm also an editor now. I'm a freelance editor. That's like my job now.
Mhm.
And I started that in March, and it's like really taken off. And so that's another thing I have to balance, like client manuscripts with my own writing, with my music. And so it's a lot, but I enjoy everything. I'm also a publicist at Wilding, the one that published
Oh,
Clio,
okay.
which again, it's a lot of work, but at the same time, it's benefiting me because I'm making industry connections, and I'm doing the exact same thing for them that I do with myself as a musician, pitching for, radio and interviews. And so I'm basically building my network in publishing, which is just going to help me in the long run because when I have my books out, I can go back to those podcasters and blogs that I pitched for the authors I'm working with and say, hey, we connected on this date or this year or whatever. And, with the bookstores I'm making connections with, those are bookstores that could potentially like stock my book or I can do signings at. So I think it's just like networking. And that's the thing too, like everything that I'm doing, like even for other people, like with my editing, I'm working on other authors' manuscripts, and with the publishing, with Wild Ink, I'm working with other authors for their opportunities. But it's all benefiting me because I'm growing as an editor and I'm growing as a publicist and like building network connections and stuff. So it's all very fun. It's very busy, but I enjoy it all.
Yeah, and there's that cliche that basically says like if you don't like what you do, then it's hard work. If you like what you do, then it's called passion.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
for sure. Like I enjoy it all. So it's not necessarily, it is work, but it doesn't really feel like work because I enjoy it. And half these manuscripts, like the full ones, have like over 1,000 comments. So like I'm putting a lot of work into it. But
Mhm.
I'm just sitting there thinking like people are paying me to read it out of their stuff. Like how's that even real? But no,
Yeah.
it's like wild.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like that so many times especially as a music educator, because I've taught a lot of things, but as a music
Yeah.
educator, I feel like seriously, like, okay, if you're gonna pay me to do, okay, great, so I can have
Yeah.
money to eat and things like that, because otherwise it would become a problem. But I'm like, I just feel really lucky to be able to do what I do, and
Yeah, exactly.
and the
Yeah.
podcasting thing, I understand what you're saying too, because here I am doing this podcast, chatting with you. We wouldn't be having this conversation. I wouldn't have had a chance to, hear your music and comment on all of these
Yeah.
things. This is like, for me, this feels like a really privileged position to be in.
Yeah, it is.
So I think it's really cool. And I'm not alone on this. Like, I really like what you're doing with your music. I'm looking forward to reading what you've written now that you're a published author. I'm going to go into
Yeah.
Amazon and get a copy.
Barnes and Noble, all the places.
Yeah, I think it's so fantastic what you're doing, and I think you're very aware of the amount of time and effort that you're putting into this. So it's good that you're starting to think about, okay, I'm doing very cool things and I love all of it. And I need to give myself some time to celebrate what I'm doing and to just
Yeah.
breather, you know? So that sounds like sustainability to me.
Kept chasing all my shooting stars. Now I see my cards for what they are. So hear me out before you go too far.
So I think, just again, congratulations on what everything you're doing right now. And I really appreciate that you take the time again to speak with me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Be in the moment, 'cause before you know.
Don't forget to like